During my sister's wedding ceremony, my father-in-law suddenly spoke up. To be honest, my wife and I wish this marriage never happened. If we could, we'd end it right now. His gaze swept over me and my sister with disdain as he added, "You're beneath us." The words hit like a slap. My sister, standing in her wedding dress, burst into tears. The joy of her special day shattered in an instant. As her older brother, I couldn't stay silent. I stood up, ready to defend her and her husband against this cruel attempt to ruin their wedding. The crowd, which had been whispering in shock, fell silent. Then, as if snapping out of their disbelief, they erupted into applause. My name is Robert Smith. I'm 30 years old and single, running a small, family-owned lunch shop. When I was in college, my parents died in a car accident. With no one else to take over the business, I dropped out and returned home to keep it running. My younger sister, Emily, who was 6 years my junior, lived with me as I managed the shop. I had once dreamed of becoming a public servant, but survival took priority. Fortunately, my parents had left behind meticulous notebooks detailing everything about the lunch business: recipes, ingredient measurements, cost breakdowns. My father's rough scribbles were lovingly rewritten by my mother, whose handwriting was as elegant as her presence. Our shop sign, "Smith's Packed Lunch," was hand-painted by her, making it feel like a part of our family legacy. "Your writing reflects your heart, Robert," she always told me. "Write beautifully." Even in this digital age, I held on to my love for handwritten letters. Emily, influenced by me, developed beautiful handwriting as well. The tiny 5-square-meter shop and those handwritten recipes were the most precious things my parents left behind. With the help of loyal part-time workers, I learned how to make packed lunches, even earning a culinary license along the way. Emily often helped, and her support was a great relief. When I was 24 and Emily was 18, she came to me one day and said, "Robert, after I graduate, I'll help you with the shop." "You don't have to," I told her. "I'll manage somehow." "You should do what makes you happy," she smiled. "If I get to choose, then making packed lunches is what I want to do." True to her word, Emily joined the family business after high school. With her by my side, we started improving our menu. We analyzed what sold best, refined our recipes, and streamlined our offerings to focus on customer favorites. "Robert, the fried chicken is selling like crazy lately," she told me one day. I modified Mom and Dad's recipe, added garlic and ginger to match local tastes. Also, our spiced chicken curry is doing surprisingly well. "Should we start making more?" Her instincts were spot on. The fried chicken became a massive hit, spreading by word of mouth. Soon, customers started requesting fried chicken curry, even though it wasn't on the menu. Eventually, it became a staple. Dad used to say, "Our customers help this shop grow." The work could be exhausting, but seeing our customers happy and our small team working hard made it all worth it. As the second-generation owner, I started to believe Smith's Packed Lunch had the potential to grow even further. "Welcome." Emily's cheerful voice rang through the store one day. She nudged me. "That guy is here again. He's been working his way through our menu. He's just one fried chicken box and a fried chicken curry away from trying everything." "I like to save the best for last," the customer laughed. "Thanks for always making such delicious lunches." Regulars like him were a blessing. Even on stormy days, when most people stayed home, he still showed up. Then one evening, Emily approached me with a serious expression. "Robert, I need to tell you something." When she was 16, she had started helping with the shop after school. Around that time, she met John. But not everyone welcomed their relationship. One day, John's father pulled her aside. "I'm looking for someone more suitable for John," he had said bluntly. "I could introduce him to someone else. I know you've had a tough life, but you're not right for my son. He's our precious eldest son. Please leave him alone." John had protested, but his father wouldn't listen. Emily came home that night, crushed. "Not suitable, huh?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "I can't believe some people still think like that. I've always been proud to be the daughter of a small packed lunch shop owner, but today, I just feel so small. How can they judge us based on what little they know?" She wiped away tears, forcing a smile. John says he won't give up, even if his father disapproves. He wants to move forward with our wedding. He even said he'd cut ties with his family if it came to that. She let out a bitter laugh. Sounds like a reverse Romeo and Juliet, doesn't it? I saw the pain in her eyes, and it hurt me to see her this way. If anything bothers you, no matter how small, talk to me, I told her. She nodded. Thanks, Robert. It must have been the first time she had been looked down upon like that, and it stung deeply. John, however, was determined. At home, Emily spent hours writing wedding invitations by hand, each letter reflecting her quiet resolve. She was preparing for the future she wanted, no matter what others thought. It's their life, I thought. There's no place for me to interfere. Meanwhile, I focused on growing the shop, promoting it through a website and social media. Little did I know that Emily's marriage would soon test all of us in ways we never expected. I wasn't very familiar with computers or smartphones, but I was learning. Recently, I bought a food truck, had Emily handwrite the chalkboard menus, and started attending local markets to spread the word about Smith's packed lunch. The wedding date was set. It was going to be a small, intimate ceremony with close family. Robert, I've finally convinced my parents, John told me. Please come to the wedding without worry. I trust you, John, I said, but Emily still insists on working at the shop. That's part of our plans. Having her work will be a big help. He smirked. Robert, you know the customers come to me for their energy. You'll miss me, right? I laughed, but deep down, I felt a pang of loneliness. Emily was my only sister, my only family. As her brother, it was my duty to let her go, but it wasn't easy. The only thing that comforted me was her promise to continue helping with the shop. The wedding day, the day finally arrived. Emily, who was usually dressed in an apron, a cotton bandana, and jeans, now stood before me in a wedding gown, her hair elegantly styled. I barely recognized her. She looked stunning. Thinking about everything we had been through, our struggles, our losses, I felt my eyes well up. Robert, why are you crying? She teased. It's way too early for that, we're just getting started. Oh, it's just dust in my eye, I muttered, rubbing my face. Ouch. You should take some pictures. I pulled out my rarely used DSLR camera and snapped away, capturing her from every angle. I must have taken at least 50 shots. These photos would be precious, memories of the sister I had raised, now moving on to a new chapter of her life. Emily smiled warmly. Robert, you're such a kind person. Thank you for everything. Please keep supporting me. Her words were simple, but I knew the deeper meaning behind them. In truth, they weren't just for me, they were also meant for our late parents. Ever since I had dropped out of college, I had been a stand-in parent for her. I could only hope I had done a good enough job. Overwhelmed, I turned away, wiping my tears before anyone could see. The ceremony began, and the bride and groom sat together, a mix of shyness and happiness on their faces. Everything was going smoothly, until it was time for the father of the groom's speech. John had assured me that his father had accepted the marriage, but as I watched the man step forward, a strange sense of familiarity hit me. A wedding speech gone wrong. Good afternoon, everyone, he began. I am Sam Thompson, the father of the groom, John. On this auspicious day, he spoke with practiced confidence, clearly comfortable addressing a crowd. His speech was neatly written on a long, folded piece of paper, which suggested it was going to be lengthy. I expected it to be a heartfelt message, something that would bring joy to the bride and groom. Instead, the speech took a sharp, unsettling turn. As I was saying, I run a food manufacturing company and plan to pass it on to my eldest son, John. His words shifted from a sentimental speech to a business presentation, boasting about his company, his son's achievements, and his plans for the future. Then, his tone darkened. I understand the bride's parents passed away early, and she has had a difficult life as the daughter of a small packed lunch shop owner. In contrast, John graduated from graduate school and is set to become an elite. This, my friends, is the very definition of disparity. A heavy silence filled the room. People began murmuring, glancing at each other in shock. Is this kind of misfortune acceptable? He continued, voice dripping with condescension. Frankly, my wife and I wish this marriage never happened. If we had our way, we would end it right now. Then, as if sealing his words, he placed his letter on the bride and groom's table, a message that might as well have said take this and reconsider. A wedding speech that proposed breaking off the marriage. This entire ceremony had been orchestrated to publicly humiliate Emily. My sister sat frozen, her eyes welling up with tears. John, his face red with anger, shot to his feet. I stood up as well, silently signaling him to stay calm. This wasn't the time for an outburst, we had to handle this differently. I walked forward, took the letter from the table, and stepped up to the microphone. John's father scowled. "What do you think you're doing, young man? Why did you take my letter?" I smiled. I believe I'm next in line for a speech, so I thought I'd take the liberty of stepping up. The MC, sensing the tension, quickly introduced me. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Robert Smith, the brother of the bride." John's father squinted at me, trying to place my name. "Robert Smith? Who is this youngster?" I ignored him and turned to the guests. "The groom's parents may oppose this marriage," I said, my voice clear and steady, "but I support it. Though I may be just the son of a small packed lunch shop owner, my sister and I have endured countless hardships together, and despite what some may think, we take immense pride in the work we inherited from our late parents. That pride will never change." The room grew even more restless. People whispered to one another, unsure of what would happen next. I tightened my grip on the microphone. If this man thought he could ruin my sister's wedding, he was about to find out just how wrong he was. A brother's stand. I took a deep breath, gripping the letter in my hands. Then, with a steady voice, I spoke into the microphone. "They say handwriting reflects the heart," I began, glancing down at the groom's father's letter, "and looking at this one, I see nothing but arrogance and rudeness. Placing such a poorly written message on the bride and groom's table, on what is supposed to be the happiest day of their lives, is nothing short of an insult." John's father's face darkened. "What are you saying, you impertinent fool?" I said. "It's a mismatch." I held my ground. "Do you even know who I am, Mr. Thompson?" Recognition flickered across his face. His expression shifted from scorn to unease. "Ah, you're Robert Smith, the owner of Smith's Packed Lunch." Of course, he had visited my shop before, but back then, I had been wearing an apron and a headscarf, just a nameless small business owner. Now, he was seeing me for who I truly was. I turned back to the guests. "Regardless of what anyone says, even if this marriage seems like a modern-day Romeo and Juliet, I will stand by John and Emily. As a brother and now a brother-in-law, I will always support them." For a moment, the room was silent, then, it erupted into thunderous applause. After the ceremony, as the guests mingled, John's father hurried over to me, his demeanor suddenly different. I didn't realize you were the Robert Smith. I sincerely apologize for my rudeness," he stammered. I met his gaze, unfazed. "I'm just the son of a packed lunch shop owner, remember? But I understand your message loud and clear." The irony wasn't lost on me. He had once visited my shop with a business proposal to mass-produce our popular fried chicken as a frozen food product, with plans to expand into a specialty chain. It had been a huge opportunity, one I had seriously considered. But after what he had done today? "Your handwriting reveals your character," I said, echoing my mother's words. "And yours, Mr. Thompson, has told me everything I need to know. Consider the proposal null and void." His face paled. "That's impossible. We've already finalized the packaging design and printed the materials. We've even secured locations for 6 stores." I shook my head. "You acted too quickly. I never signed the contract. And this recipe, this family recipe, is not for sale. Find another supplier." Desperation crept into his voice. "The Smith's Packed Lunch brand carries significant weight. Please reconsider." Before I could respond, John stepped in. His voice was firm, his eyes filled with a long-held resentment. "Dad, our relationship ends today, as promised. I never expected such a betrayal." His father's face twisted in panic. "John, please reconsider. You're the only heir." John clenched his fists. "And who broke our promise first?" Tears welled in his eyes, but his voice never wavered. That was the last time he called Sam Thompson his father. From that day forward, he took on our family name. John Smith. A new beginning. After the wedding, Emily and John moved into an apartment near the shop. Emily's once 0-minute commute became a 20-minute bike ride, but she still arrived every morning with her usual bright smile, greeting customers with warmth. Her handwritten pop-up signs became one of Smith's Packed Lunch's signature features, an irreplaceable part of our identity. John, on the other hand, found a new purpose. "Robert, is there anything I can help with?" he asked one day. Having severed ties with his father, He put his business acumen to work, this time, for us. With his expertise in marketing, we expanded the shop's reach far beyond what I had imagined. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson's company faced its own struggles. With no heir left to take over, they brought in a new president, but as chairman, Mr. Thompson refused to relinquish control. He drove away his successor within months, taking back the title of both chairman and president. His iron grip, once seen as leadership, now strangled the company's growth. And the cost of losing John? It was steep. Meanwhile, we thrived. With John's help, I focused on product development, creating new, innovative menu items while staying true to our roots. His idea to introduce our chicken curry to local convenience stores and supermarkets was a hit. Soon, demand grew beyond our expectations, and we expanded into online sales. Before we knew it, our products were featured in department store holiday gift catalogs. Like a single stone causing ripples in a pond, Smith's Packed Lunch was no longer just a small neighborhood shop. It was becoming something more. A new chapter. One day, a woman came in for a job interview. She was a year older than me, poised and confident. I glanced at her resume, and immediately noticed something. Her handwriting. It was elegant, refined, reminding me of my mother's careful script. She spoke passionately about Smith's Packed Lunch, about how she loved not just the food but the warmth of the shop, the way it brought people together. Emily, who had interviewed her first, gave me a knowing look. She's meticulous, great with customers, and honestly, she gets what we do here. Handwriting reflects the heart. And in that moment, I knew. Not long after, I proposed to that very woman. Now, we have 2 children, making us a family of 4. The future of Smith's Packed Lunch. Today, our family, mine and Emily's, is taking our food truck to a gourmet festival in New York. A massive crowd is expected. For this day, we've refined our signature fried chicken to perfection. And as I stand behind the counter, ready to serve the first customer, I can't help but smile. Because I know, without a doubt, the future of Smith's Packed Lunch is bright.